I know it's not going to be easy for me, but think how tough things are for them.
No, I could have never handled this at your age. This is really cool that you're doing this.
Dad, this isn't about cool. I mean, the whole concept of hospice is an alternative to the medical establishment.
Everyone loved him as Simba in The Lion King and Randy on Home Improvement. But in 1998, Jonathan Taylor Thomas quit Hollywood and never came back. Why? He was suffering in silence. Horrible headaches during filming, panic attacks from being famous, and personal problems that almost broke him.
Plays Randy, the precocious middle son on the popular sitcom Home Improvement. Now he's starring in a new film called Wild America, and here's Jonathan Taylor.
Now, 25 years later, we finally know why America's favorite teen star chose to disappear. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was born Jonathan Taylor Weiss on September 8, 1981, in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. His parents, Claudine Gonsalves and Stephen Weiss, had no idea their son would one day be one of the biggest teen stars of the 1990s. When he started acting, he decided to change his name. He kept his first and middle names but added Thomas from his brother's middle name. It wasn't just a stage name, it was a mix of personal and professional identity, something that kept him connected to his family while helping him stand out in Hollywood. His early years were filled with change. When he was 4, his family moved from Pennsylvania to Sacramento. A few years later, they moved again, this time to Los Angeles. Each move brought him closer to the entertainment industry. Living in different places at a young age may have made him adaptable, a quality that helped him later in life. At 4 years old, he made a decision most kids wouldn't even think about. He became a vegetarian. He wasn't following a trend or copying someone else. He did it because he believed in animal rights. That belief only grew stronger over time. He refused to use products tested on animals and stayed committed to ethical choices despite the pressures of Hollywood. His awareness of social issues may have come from his mother. She worked with underprivileged adults and often took him to work functions. He saw things most kids his age didn't. He learned about responsibility, gratitude, and making choices that mattered. His vegetarian lifestyle wasn't just about food, it was about living in a way that matched his values. His stance on animal rights set him apart. In the 90s, young stars rarely spoke about things like ethical consumerism, but Thomas didn't just talk about it. He lived it. Fans admired him not just for his acting, but for his choices. He wasn't just a teen idol. He was someone with convictions. In 1991, his life changed again. His parents divorced. At 10 years old, he moved with his mother and older brother to Los Angeles. It was a tough transition, but it put him closer to new opportunities. His career was already taking off, and being in Hollywood helped him keep that momentum. Even with the challenges of divorce, Thomas had a strong support system. His mother managed his career and made sure he stayed grounded. But another key figure in his life was his uncle, Jeff Weiss. Jeff was a well-known playwright and actor. He wasn't just a relative, he was a mentor. He helped Thomas see acting as more than just reading lines. He taught him about storytelling, about the craft behind the performances people saw on screen. Having a family member in the industry gave Thomas something many child actors didn't have. He had someone who understood the business, someone who could guide him through it. His uncle's influence may have been the reason Thomas approached his roles with more depth than most kids his age. Even in comedies, there was something real about his performances. He wasn't just playing a part, he was bringing something extra to it. Jonathan Taylor Thomas started young. By 7, he was already modeling for print ads in Sacramento, California. That led to TV commercials, where his confidence and natural charm stood out. He wasn't just another kid selling cereal. He had something special, and people noticed. One of his first big commercials was for Kellogg's Product 19 in 1988. 2 years later, he landed a Burger King ad with Thora Birch. He also did spots for Vivident Gum and Canon camcorders. Each commercial gave him more experience, more time in front of the camera, and more chances to learn how the industry worked. By 8, he had already built a solid foundation. Then came his first real TV role. In 1990, he played Kevin Brady in The Bradys, a spin-off of The Brady Bunch. It seemed like a promising project.
You know, a lot of times that middle child ends up being the funny one because he wants the attention.
Bringing back familiar characters from the original show. But something didn't click. The series lasted just 6 episodes before getting canceled. It wasn't the breakout moment he had hoped for, but it was still a big step. Back then, he was credited as Jonathan Weiss, his birth name. He worked alongside TV veterans like Robert Reed and Florence Henderson, picking up skills that would help him later. The show may have been short-lived, but the experience was invaluable. It gave him a glimpse into the world of television, a taste of what it was like to be part of a series. That early exposure led to something much bigger. In 1991, he auditioned for Home Improvement and landed the role of Randy Taylor. The show became a massive hit, running for 8 seasons and turning him into one of the most recognizable young stars of the decade. His resemblance to Tim Allen helped him get cast, but it was his quick wit and natural delivery that made him a fan favorite. The show ran from 1991 to 1999, and Thomas appeared in 177 episodes. Fans loved his character, not just because he was funny, but because he had depth. Randy wasn't just another sitcom kid. He questioned things. He challenged his father's old-school views.
Hey, come on in. Everybody, this is my new boss. This is John Baker.
Oh, hi, I'm Vanessa. Hi.
Hey, Mike Baxter.
Hey.
Man, you look familiar.
He had a sharp mind and a strong sense of right and wrong. That made him stand out, and it made him one of the most memorable parts of the show. Even at 10 years old, he was serious about his work. He juggled school and filming, something that was impressive but also exhausting. That pressure would eventually lead him to step away from acting. At the height of his fame, Jonathan Taylor Thomas wasn't just an actor. He was a phenomenon. Magazines like Tiger Beat and Bop put him on their covers month after month. Fans gave him the nickname JTT, and his messy blonde hair and blue eyes made him one of the biggest teen idols of the decade. But it wasn't just about looks. He was smart. He was thoughtful. In interviews, he talked about staying grounded and using fame for something positive. He didn't just want attention. He wanted to send the right message. His career went far beyond Home Improvement. He starred in family-friendly movies like Man of the House, Tom and Huck, and I'll Be Home for Christmas. These roles made him even more popular, but they also came with a cost. By the late 90s, he was growing tired of the constant spotlight. He hated being called JTT. He didn't like when interviewers pried into his personal life. The pressure of being a teen idol started to feel overwhelming. Balancing Hollywood and school wasn't easy. It wasn't just about keeping up with classes. The long hours and stress started affecting his health. He suffered from intense migraines, sometimes filming entire episodes while dealing with severe headaches. In a 1994 interview, he admitted, "I can't tell you how many shows I've done with full-blown migraine headaches." He kept going, he stayed professional, but it was getting harder. In 1998, he made the decision to leave Home Improvement. He was only 17, but he had been working non-stop for nearly a decade. He wanted something different. He wanted to live a normal life. Some cast members weren't happy about his departure, and fans were shocked. But for Thomas, it was the right move. Later, he explained, "Had I stayed at the show and tried to do academically what I'm doing now, I would have put myself in an early grave." Apart from that, Jonathan Taylor Thomas was only 12 years old when he became the voice of young Simba in Disney's The Lion King.
Starred as the voice of young Simba in The Lion King, and for the last 6 seasons, he's played Randy on Home Improvement. Now, starting July 2nd, you can see him in the new film Wild America. Let's take a look.
At the time, he was already known for playing Randy Taylor on Home Improvement, but this role took his career to a whole new level. The movie became a massive success, earning nearly $1 billion and winning 2 Academy Awards. For Thomas, it was more than just a job. It was a chance to bring one of Disney's most beloved characters to life. Disney spent months searching for the right voice. They needed someone who could capture Simba's energy, curiosity, and playful nature. Dozens of child actors auditioned, but Thomas stood out. He had a natural confidence that made Simba feel real, not just another cartoon character. His voice carried just the right mix of innocence and personality, making him the perfect choice. Recording the lines took over a year. Since Thomas was busy with Home Improvement, Disney had to work around his schedule. Some of his lines were even recorded on the set of the show. He often had to perform alone, imagining how the other characters would respond. To make it feel more natural, he sometimes acted out their lines himself. This helped him react in a way that felt real. His expressions and mannerisms were also recorded, so animators could bring elements of his personality into Simba's character. His signature smirk even became one of Simba's most recognizable traits. Thomas connected with Simba in ways that made the performance even stronger. Like his character on Home Improvement, Simba was adventurous, clever, and independent. That familiarity helped him sound natural in every scene. His voice made Simba's excitement, fear, and sadness feel real, especially in the moment when Simba finds Mufasa after the stampede. Even though the film was animated, Thomas gave it an emotional depth that made it unforgettable. The Lion King was more than just a hit movie. It became a cultural phenomenon. The soundtrack sold millions of copies. Its story about identity and responsibility connected with audiences around the world. Years later, it remains one of Disney's most beloved films, and Thomas's voice is a big reason why. His performance shaped how people saw Simba, making the character feel relatable and real. After The Lion King, Thomas kept working in voice acting. In 1996, he played Pinocchio in The Adventures of Pinocchio, a live-action and animated film that gave a new take on the classic story. His voice captured the wonder and determination of a wooden puppet who dreams of becoming a real boy. It showed that he wasn't just a child star, he had real talent for bringing characters to life. He also took on smaller roles in animation. He played Tyler Tucker in The Wild Thornberrys, a show about a family that traveled the world studying wildlife. He made a guest appearance on The Simpsons, voicing a character named Luke Stetson. Even in these short roles, his voice had a charm that made each character stand out. He later voiced Prince Rajas in the sci-fi adventure Through the Moebius Strip and played Tangy, a teddy bear searching for a home, in the holiday special The Tangerine Bear. Each project let him explore different kinds of characters, showing how versatile he was as a voice actor. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was everywhere in the 1990s. He wasn't just the kid from Home Improvement. He was leading some of the biggest family movies of the decade, playing characters full of energy, humor, and adventure. Each role gave him a chance to do something different, but no matter what kind of story he was in, he always made it feel fun. In 1995, he starred in Man of the House, playing Ben Archer, a kid struggling to accept his mom's new boyfriend. Chevy Chase played the man trying to win him over, but Ben wasn't making it easy. At first, he did everything he could to push him away, coming up with tricks and pranks to keep him out of their lives. But when a dangerous situation forced them to stick together, everything changed. It wasn't just a comedy. It had action, family drama, and a story about learning to accept change. Thomas was funny, sharp, and confident, holding his own next to Chevy Chase, who was known for his quick-witted humor. The movie itself got mixed reviews, but Thomas stood out. He had that kind of screen presence that made every scene better. That same year, he took on a completely different role in Tom and Huck. This time, he was Tom Sawyer, the legendary troublemaker from Mark Twain's classic story. He wasn't just causing mischief for fun. When he and Huck Finn stumbled into a murder mystery, things got serious fast. They were on the run, keeping secrets and trying to stay one step ahead of danger. It was an adventure movie with action and suspense, but it never lost the playful spirit of the original story. Thomas fit perfectly as Tom. He had the right mix of charm and daring, making it easy to believe he was the kind of kid who could talk his way out of anything.
You know, I haven't had much time for that lately. Sort of wrapped the show and then went right into school and studied hard for finals. And
Finals, and what grade are you in anyway?
I just finished my freshman year, which I'm very happy about. I get to go back next year, and I'm
Right.
In 1997, he switched things up again with Wild America, a movie based on a true story. He played Marshall Stuffer, the youngest of three brothers, who set out on a cross-country journey to film wildlife. It was a story about adventure and chasing big dreams. Instead of city streets or small-town neighborhoods, the movie took place in forests, rivers, and mountains, with real animals making every scene feel more exciting. Thomas wasn't playing the usual wisecracking kid this time. His character was ambitious, determined, and ready to prove himself. It was different from his past roles, but he made it work. Then came I'll Be Home for Christmas in 1998. This one was a holiday comedy with a twist. Thomas played Jake Wilkinson, a college student who only cared about himself. When his dad offered him a classic Porsche as a Christmas gift, Jake was ready to take full advantage of it. But before he could make it home, he got stranded in the desert, wearing a Santa suit with no money and no way to get back. The only way to fix things was to change his attitude. The movie was filled with funny, over-the-top situations, but at its heart, it was about realizing what really matters. Thomas made sure Jake wasn't just another selfish character. He gave him just enough charm to make people root for him, even when he was making mistakes. Every movie he did brought something different. Some were funnier, some had more action, but all of them showed why Jonathan Taylor Thomas was one of the biggest young stars of the decade. He knew how to make a character feel real. That's what made people keep watching. Jonathan Taylor Thomas had everything a young actor could dream of. He was the voice of Simba in The Lion King, a star on Home Improvement, and one of the most recognizable teen actors of the 90s. Then, at the peak of his success, he walked away. No dramatic exits, no scandals, just a quiet decision to leave it all behind. Hollywood had been his life since childhood, but by the time he turned 18, he wanted something different. In 2000, he enrolled at Harvard University to study philosophy and history. It was a major shift from red carpets and TV sets, but he embraced it. Instead of memorizing scripts, he was debating ideas and diving into books. He wasn't just looking for a break from acting, he wanted to redefine himself. After 2 years, he left Harvard to study abroad at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. The change gave him a fresh perspective, something beyond the industry he had grown up in. When he returned to the U.S., he continued his education at Columbia University and eventually earned his degree in 2010. Throughout all of this, he stayed away from the spotlight. While many former child stars kept their names in the headlines, Thomas quietly built a life outside Hollywood. He never used his fame to draw attention to his academic journey. He never tried to stage a comeback. He simply moved forward. But his departure didn't come without rumors. One of the biggest came from his decision to skip the Home Improvement series finale in 1999. While the rest of the cast reunited for the final episode, he wasn't there. At the time, he was focused on college applications and felt his future was more important. Tim Allen, who had played his on-screen father for years, admitted he was confused by the decision.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas, thanks so much for being here. Good to have you with us. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to play us out, Mr. James Brown.
Okay, our next guest.
Some took this as a sign of tension between them, but Patricia Richardson, who played his on-screen mother, later clarified there was no major fallout. In fact, she stayed in touch with Thomas and supported his choice to step away. Years later, rumors of conflict resurfaced when talks of a Home Improvement reunion began. Richardson revealed that neither she nor Thomas had been contacted about a reboot. The lack of communication led to speculation, but there was never any public dispute. Thomas had simply moved on. But the pressure of being a child star took a serious toll on him, both physically and emotionally. While filming Home Improvement, he struggled with migraines. These weren't just minor headaches. They were intense, painful episodes that made it hard to focus. He had to memorize lines, perform on set, and keep up with school, all while dealing with constant pain. The long hours only made things worse. Balancing acting, education, and a personal life was exhausting. In an interview, he once described the stress of managing it all. He had to be a student, a performer, and a regular kid at the same time. That kind of pressure wears on anyone, but for someone his age, it was even harder. Hollywood has rules to protect young actors. There are limits on how long they can work and requirements for school time, but that doesn't erase the pressure. When a child star is as famous as Thomas was, the expectations are enormous. He wasn't just acting, he was carrying the success of a hit TV show. By 1998, he had reached his limit. He chose to leave, deciding his health and education mattered more than staying in the spotlight. For many young actors, fame is a dream. For Thomas, it became overwhelming. At the height of his career, he was one of the biggest teen idols of the decade. His face was everywhere. Paparazzi followed him, magazines analyzed his every move, and fans wanted more of him. The attention never stopped. In a 1997 interview, he admitted it made him anxious. He knew fame came with responsibility. Fans expected something from him, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make everyone happy. That realization took a toll on him. Being a teen idol isn't just about acting. It means being turned into something bigger than yourself. Fans project their own ideas onto you. Strangers feel like they know you. At first, it might seem exciting, but over time, it becomes suffocating. Thomas never wanted to stay in Hollywood forever. In a 1996 interview, he called the industry neurotic and weird. He preferred spending time with friends outside of show business. He wanted to be himself, not a product of fame. On top of all that, rumors about his personal life followed him for years. Fans and tabloids obsessed over his private life, especially his sexuality. In 2000, he played a character struggling with identity in the Showtime movie Common Ground. It was just a role, but people used it as fuel for speculation. He never addressed the rumors, and his silence only made them grow. For someone who valued privacy, this kind of attention was exhausting. Every part of his life was picked apart. People made assumptions about him without knowing anything real. Instead of dealing with that forever, he chose a different path. He walked away, focused on education, and built a life outside of the public eye. One of his first major returns to acting came in the early 2000s with Smallville. The show followed a young Clark Kent before he became Superman and was one of the biggest hits of its time. Thomas appeared in 2 episodes as Ian Randall, a high school student with a dangerous secret. It was a sharp contrast to the roles he played in the 90s. No longer the wisecracking kid from Home Improvement, he stepped into something darker. His character had the ability to clone himself, which made for an intense storyline. The role was small, but it showed he could handle more than just sitcoms. A few years later, in 2005, he made a brief but memorable appearance in Veronica Mars. The show had a loyal fan base and was known for its sharp writing and mystery-driven plots. Thomas played a high school student involved in a suspenseful investigation, keeping audiences guessing about his true intentions. It was another step away from his childhood image, proving he could take on more complex roles. But his biggest return to television happened when he reunited with Tim Allen on Last Man Standing. Between 2013 and 2016, he appeared in multiple episodes, bringing a wave of nostalgia for Home Improvement fans. The chemistry between him and Allen was still there, making the reunion feel effortless. But Thomas wasn't just there to act. He was also stepping into a new role.
Of filmmaking, and it's fun.
You get to do, I would say, more than on the TV show. In films, you really get to, see things blow up and jump off things.
Definitely. I mean, that's part of the joy of it.
Yeah. Do you like being, because, you're a teen idol. Do you enjoy that? I mean, I know you take your acting seriously, but...
Director. Over the course of his time on the show, he directed 3 episodes, showing he had more to offer than just his on-screen presence. His interest in directing wasn't sudden. Even during Home Improvement, he had spent time watching directors at work. While other young actors focused on memorizing lines, Thomas was paying attention to camera angles, scene setups, and how a show came together. In an interview, he once said that being on set was like free film school. He knew early on that acting wasn't the only thing he wanted to do. His work on Last Man Standing proved he was serious about it. Directing a few episodes might not seem like a big deal, but for someone who had spent years away from Hollywood, it was a major step. It gave him a chance to collaborate in a different way, shaping a story from behind the camera instead of in front of it. Even with these small returns to acting, Thomas has stayed out of the spotlight. In June 2021, he was spotted walking his dogs in Hollywood. It was one of the first times he had been photographed in years. Unlike many former child stars, he never tried to hold on to fame. He walked away because he wanted to. No social media, no red carpets, just a life outside of Hollywood. That doesn't mean he lost interest in storytelling. Over the years, he has talked about his love for writing and directing. He still follows theater and film. He just prefers to enjoy it without the pressure of being in front of the camera. Even though he left Hollywood behind, his impact never faded. His role in Home Improvement made him a household name. His voice in The Lion King became part of movie history. For an entire generation, he was a defining face of the 90s. But his biggest statement wasn't in a role he played. It was in the choice he made. Walking away from fame is rare. Doing it on your own terms is even rarer. And that might be what makes him more unforgettable than ever.